thrown them a softball, given them an opportunity to respond by asserting a crime as if it's a casual answer to an ordinary question. So nobody thinks that it's going to end. And these massive bases, yes, smaller ones may be closed, troops may be all pulled into the bigger ones, but these are cities. These are permanent cities, like we have in dozens of countries around the world. And they are meant to stay, and it was one of the primary motivations for the war to begin with, openly laid out long before the war was launched in the Project for the New American Century and elsewhere. It's, you know, if Congress wants to know whether a withdrawal is happening or not, it just has to watch those bases. I don't think they want to know. Yeah, right behind.
Yeah, talking about bases, do you have anything to say about the new bases in Colombia after the closing of the one in Ecuador, and also the reason that is active again? I think it's called the 4th Navy float, something like that, that had been in front of Brazil for a long time. That is making Brazil now to buy nuclear submarines, I mean, from France and other countries. And there was a meeting in Argentina last week of all the presidents of South America discussing that, what it means for South America.
Well, South America is going in some ways in a good direction politically, but our empire is not. We are expanding, and they know it very, very well, and have, in at least one case, offered to put a base in Florida in exchange for our base in their country, which would of course be absolutely outrageous. The idea of a foreign military presence in a country, outrage, absolutely outrageous.
Beside the one that we have.
Right, now we've added Colombia to our empire of bases. We have bases in a majority of countries around the world. Yeah. We have somewhere around 1,000 bases around the world of U.S. troops. We have 500,000 troops and 100,000 support staff spread around the world. We're spending well over 100, maybe $150 billion a year to do this. And it is, although most Americans know very little about it, the primary interface between our country and most other people of the world. That's how they experience us, by interaction with our bases, which in many cases produce all kinds of resentment, including just from the crimes and drunkenness and prostitution that grow up around the bases.
And rape.
I'm sorry?
And rape, too, remember?
And rape, indeed. I mean, you hear when somebody in Japan gets raped, or somebody in Italy flies an airplane through a ski lift, you hear about it. Yeah. But in the normal course of things, you don't. And when it's being expanded with new bases, you hear very, very little. You hear about Colombia when it happens, not before it happens. And I used to live in a town in Italy where they had a U.S. Army base. Not the biggest one in the world. There are much bigger ones in Germany. It's just a U.S. Army base. And, you know, in the 80s, up through the 90s, the Italians and the Americans got along great. And all I had to say was, I'm American. And it was like saying I'm a rock star. Like, they loved you, you know. And now, they have proposed to build a larger base than any existing bases in Europe to consolidate European forces south of the Alps, closer to attacking Africa, and on the opposite side of this relatively small town from the existing ones, and really turn this city, this beautiful, old, Renaissance city, into an American military post. And the people are outraged. And the people of Italy and of Europe are outraged. And they've thrown the Prime Minister out of office temporarily over this. I mean, it's been a huge story. And the Americans go, the soldiers go jogging through this town, and people stand in line holding up signs saying, "Go home now," you know. And we brought folks we brought local government officials and ordinary citizens who set up a permanent camp to put their bodies in the way of the bulldozers. We brought these people to Washington and met with Senate staffers and others who knew about these plans for years before a single person in Italy knew about it. and who had absolutely no willingness to consider backing down, and are going to go ahead with this. And all it does is turn people against us. And there is a growing movement against these bases around the world and in this country. And peace groups like American Friends Service Committee are doing good work on this. The Global Network Against the Militarization of Space is doing great work on this. And it's a huge issue right now in South America, as you say.
Yeah, one of the results from the president's meeting was they are planning to do the name just came out, a referendum, a general referendum for South America to vote North America out, I mean, United States out.
All of South America or Colombia?
Well, no, Colombia is not. But that had been the result of the talk. I mean, even Chile, that is the big ally of United States, voted for it.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Yes. And in the Czech Republic, they've said no to these missile offense systems, as some of us call them. Yes, over here and then.
Yes, I was going to ask you, what do you think about Obama and possibility of finally the great, almighty, powerful Israeli lobby is finally getting kicked in the face, or is this just a flash in the pan?
I think it is very, very powerful. I think Rahm Emanuel is very, very heavily influenced by it, as is Barack Obama. I think that we are funding crimes in Gaza, in Lebanon, that have to be ended. I think it's encouraging how many Americans are getting involved in trying to help in Gaza. But I think it's something that it's not very well kept secret, but it doesn't fit with our system of government, and it continues to go on and on regardless of administration as part of the permanent bureaucracy. And that doesn't mean that a new president doesn't have the power and the responsibility to chart a different course. He absolutely does, but there is a permanent bureaucracy. And the people, some of the people that President Obama has brought into his administration are the same types of people, if not the very same people, that President McCain would have brought in. In fact, the two campaigns were working together before they knew who had won to vet nominees for appointment. The election is not what makes the big difference, and the name of the president is not what makes the big difference.
Both CFR members, so.
Yes, the education and mobilization of people is what could make a difference, and we might see it. Yes.
Well, how do we organize better locally? You know, we don't have a pastor to get us together, a CEO, and a lot of money. So, you know, you've done a lot of activism. The media tends to ignore progressive activism. What's your advice? There's a lot of problems we talked about.
Well, there are probably very good local organizations here, and I can't give a fair list of them because I don't know what they are. But there are groups nationally that I work with, like Progressive Democrats of America and Democrats.com, and peace groups affiliated with United for Peace and Justice, and all kinds of local chapters of national groups that I know tend to do a very good job and function democratically. And of course, those tend to be the groups with little funding. And they and despite some of them having the word Democrat in their name, tend to be the groups that are more independent of a party line. These groups need to be supported with participation, with funding if it can be found, and more people need to be made active in them. It takes much less than we imagine to have huge victories, and I've been hearing about local victories in Akron and around the state since I've been traveling.